Steve Sarkisian had a lot to say about his running backs.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams had a record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks. Under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back!
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI Podcast. I am your host, Matt Galatson. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt, who is live on scene in San Jose for the Texas Longhorns Sweet 16 matchup against the Purdue Boilermakers. We will get into that quite extensively, as a matter of fact, because we've got some interesting updates there. We're also going to make our predictions for the game. But first, Zach, a little bit of football. Steve Sarkisian met with the media this week to talk spring football and pro day and all the different things. And he said some particularly interesting stuff about the running backs that I'm going to tell you about right now. Almost throwing a little bit of shade, not necessarily intentional, at his 2025 running backs, but he said the ability to, he's speaking of Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown specifically, he says the ability to make guys miss in tight quarters in the open field is something we had the luxury of the first few years here. We were very fortunate to have that aspect of our team the first 4 years here that maybe we didn't have a year ago. And I think that that's a very, very fair statement. Texas had its worst rushing attack since World War II this past year with Trey Wisner and C.J. Baxter, neither of which were the shiftiest guys in the world, neither of which were the fastest guys in the world, especially C.J. Baxter coming off of his injury. Trey Wisner is just kind of a workhorse guy that made some big plays in some big games, but not necessarily the most athletically gifted guy in the world, and that's okay. They got the job done, specifically Wisner, when it mattered the most against Oklahoma and Texas A&M. And like those things are all really, really important. But now you bring in a couple of other guys in Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers that have the ability to be the big game-breaking duo that Texas really has not had since, you go back to even 2024 when you had Jaden Blue, who is a big play guy. 2023, you had Jonathan Brooks, a little bit of Jaden Blue late in the year. You also had a healthy C.J. Baxter. Before that, you had Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. You can see what I'm getting at here. This group of running backs with the two that I mentioned, plus even Derek Cooper, I think really give you an opportunity to have that type of explosive rushing attack that you desperately need.
For sure. And yeah, last season, it's no secret that the standard was not even close to being met when it came to the running back room. The production was not there. It was the worst rushing attack under Steve Sarkisian. And like you mentioned, not only that, one of the worst in program history. And so Texas is considered RBU, in college football, in my opinion. There's maybe a few other schools you can throw in there, but the standard is really high at that position, obviously. So, I do think that the past couple of seasons during the runs to the college football playoff, the running back room was a standout group, and I loved what Quintravion Wisner did at Texas, but I think that his value was at its best when he had that complementary back alongside him, and the pairing of him and C.J. Baxter last season, it just wasn't really what the team needed, in my opinion. I think Jaden Blue and Wisner, that was a really good pairing there. You had a bruiser guy and you had a speedy guy, and it's hard in college football and then and then NFL as well to just have one guy be able to be a workhorse for you. And I think it works out for Texas when you have two guys that can do, that can handle significant reps. And I certainly think that Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown will be able to do that. You enter the spring with neither one necessarily being seen as the full-time starter. And that's a good thing, in my opinion, because they'll challenge each other during spring and headed into fall. to potentially win that starting job, and that'll make both of them better as a result. So, they added Derek Cooper to the mix, where he's a guy that you can see in the future being that star level running back that can handle a heavy workload. So, obviously the standard wasn't met, and Steve Sarkisian and the staff said, we're not going to waste any time with making sure this thing gets turned around right away, because this is a make or break year. Fired Chad Scott, hired Jabbar Jalouk at running backs coach. Chad Scott had only been there for one season. You may think, oh, it was just one bad year, we'll give him another chance, and then we'll decide about his future. No, they said, the standard was not met. So Chad Scott, you're out of here. Jabbar Jalouk, you're coming in here because this is Texas, and we're here to win a national championship. And Texas couldn't even make the college football playoff last season, and maybe in large part due to that running back, that room. So, excited about what the future holds for that position, and I certainly think that the Longhorns won't be finishing under 1,000 total yards or not have 1,000-yard rusher next season. I think that's pretty safe to say.
Yeah, apologies for my microphone not being plugged in for the first part of the show, by the way. I hope that this sounds better. Yeah, I mean, you look at what these two guys bring to the table, and it's extremely exciting. First of all, talking about Hollywood Smothers and the game-breaking ability that he has. After contact, he had 614 total yards, averaged 3.84 yards per carry after contact per attempt. And in comparison with Texas last year, Trey Wisner had 423 total yards after contact, averaged 3.25 after contact per carry, and Raleek Brown, who we're also talking about here, had 607 yards of total contact, averaging 3.28 yards per play after contact. Both of those stats are extremely big for Texas because either one of them would have led the team last year in terms of those total yards after contact, which is huge. But it's the breakaway percentage that is interesting to me. Hollywood Smothers' breakaway percentage was 45.8%, whereas Trey Wisner was at 27.1%. Brown was at 45.8%, and Hollywood Smothers is at 52.8%, so that's even better. And then you look over at Raleek Brown, you compare him to Jaden Blue a little bit, which was kind of my comp for him. Maybe not as fast, but kind of the same type of player. Raleek Brown, like I said, just under 46% with the breakaway percentage. But in terms of explosive runs, Jaden Blue in 2024 had 13 runs of 10 or more yards. That's pretty good. Raleek Brown had 31. That's elite. And those are the kinds of things that these two guys are bringing to the table that I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty eye-popping stat right there, because Jaden Blue, he probably could have had a few more of those runs, those explosive runs, if not for some of the fumbling issues, and yet he still probably wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to that number that Raleek Brown was able to do. So that says a lot right there. It's the standard will be met, I feel like, in that room next season. I think that the fact that you got Raleek Brown and he was seen as the starter, out of the portal, and you thought, oh, the work is done at that position, and then you go and add another guy with starting level potential. And Hollywood Smothers, Stark even said that if you would have told him they were going to be able to get two guys at that level, he would have thought it was pretty unlikely, and yet they were able to pull it off, and things fell the right way. And of course, what we've been hearing is that what Sark was saying, at least in the beginning of spring practice, was both of those guys are also their closest friends already in spring ball. And so not only is the talent there, but the chemistry is there in the running back room, where neither guy is gonna let the ego get in the way about who's the starter, who's not. It's about winning a championship, and that goes a long way. I know the running backs having chemistry together doesn't necessarily equal a championship, but the locker room presence is where it needs to be, and what the mentality is. It's already off to a good start. So I'm pretty excited for that room, and we still got months ahead of more updates and seeing what they can do. And so, yeah, excited for that.
Yeah, and you're right. It doesn't really matter on the field necessarily if they have chemistry, but those two guys getting along off the field and in the locker room can only bode well for the chemistry in the room overall. And you know, they love playing with each other. They love having the ability to play off of each other and come in and pick the other one up or whatever the case may be. All of those things are actually very important. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's take a quick break, Zach, because when we come back, we are going to give you an exhaustive preview of the Longhorns Sweet 16 matchup tonight, just a couple of hours away against the Purdue Boilermakers. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers, to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom-built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I am your host, Matt Galatson, joined by Zach Dimmitt, who is live in San Jose for the Longhorns Sweet 16 matchup against the Purdue Boilermakers. And first, before we get into the game, Zach, a little bit of concerning news after the Gonzaga game. Jordan Pope came up injured. We didn't know if it was going to be anything serious, how it was going to affect his game against Purdue. You asked Sean Miller about that, and he had some pretty solid news for us and some pretty exciting news for Longhorn fan regarding that injury.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of a concern, but it's trending in a positive way, I would say. Sean Miller had said even after the game that that he felt pretty good about Jordan Pope being able to play against Purdue. After the Gonzaga game, Jordan Pope even said that he's 100% sure that he's going to be playing. And so it's good to hear that from him, but it's all about what do the trainers think, what does the medical staff think. So yeah, he was hobbled a little bit after that Gonzaga game, but the adrenaline was certainly kicking in, and so. What does it now look like a few days after that? We'll have to wait and see. He's listed as questionable tonight against Purdue. Obviously, he has come up so big for Texas during this March Madness run, and there's no secret that Longhorns will need him. Even if he's not at 100%, which he won't be. So we'll have to wait and see what his status looks like tonight. He was on the practice court a little bit yesterday during the media session of practice, which is about 15 minutes long. He was not on the court. But in the locker room afterwards, when the media was allowed in there yesterday, he was saying that he's going to be playing. So certainly something to watch there. Obviously, he hit some big threes against Gonzaga, hit some big threes against BYU. He's Texas's best shooter when it comes to threes, at least. He's almost double the next guy, Camden Heide, in total threes made this season. So, I think that if Texas has any chance of winning, they need Jordan Pope to play. If he doesn't play, Longhorns will have a very tough time against Purdue. And another thing to watch on the injury front is Purdue guard CJ Cox. He suffered a hyperextended knee in that win over Miami in the second round. You hate to see that injury regardless of who the player is. But at the end of the day, that's another injury to the opposing team that Texas has kind of been gifted a little bit. The Longhorns shouldn't apologize for some of their wins in the NCAA tournament, but the other team in each round that they face has now potentially dealt with a serious injury. And CJ Cox is listed as questionable as well. He's not out for the game. But I think with him, it seems less likely that he would play than Jordan Pope, if I were to guess, just based on what those guys were saying in the locker room afterwards. And CJ Cox is a starter for Purdue, 8 points per game, but I think he's probably up there with being their best wing defender. And if you don't have your best wing defender against Tramon Mark and Dailyn Swain, who I think will have the size and athleticism advantage against Purdue, that could be a potential thing to watch for Texas, and they should be able to try to take advantage of that. So, yeah, something to watch there for both teams. I think Jordan Pope, he's from Oakley, California, not Oakland, Oakley, and so that's only about 50 minutes from here in San Jose. He's gonna have lots of friends and family there. I'd be hard pressed to imagine that he doesn't at least try to give it a go, even if he's going to be a little bit hobbled. It's hard to see him just sitting on that bench when his college career is on the line and he's playing in his home state and near his hometown. I think he's definitely going to be in the lineup tonight, and how much of an impact he'll have, we'll have to wait and see. But it's hard to imagine that he's going to be on the bench tonight. So that's just my opinion on it. We'll have to wait and see in a few hours from now, but just a few injury notes to look out for. Other than that, both teams pretty healthy. Texas obviously still without Lucien Traore, who will miss his 13th straight game. He's not even with the team right now. He's back home in Austin. So, but yeah, if Purdue doesn't have CJ Cox, that's definitely notable. And if Texas doesn't have Jordan Pope, that's even more notable because of the impact they has on this roster. So a few more hours and then we'll know for sure.
Yeah, Texas has gotten real fortunate with injury news for the opposing teams, and maybe it'll end up playing a factor, maybe it won't. What I do know is that if Texas does have Jordan Pope in this game, which I expect they will to a certain extent at least, they're a much better team with him than they are without him, because he's one of the few players on the floor for Texas offensively that can get his own shot when he needs it. Like him, Tramon Mark, and Dailyn Swain are pretty much the only guys you can rely on consistently to do those kinds of things. So if you take one of them out of the equation, that Texas's offense takes a big hit. I think that having him in the lineup is obviously incredibly important. And we've seen what the team has been able to do in terms of picking each other up offensively over the last couple of games. I mean, against Gonzaga, the box score was a little bit different than what we're typically used to seeing, with like Nick Cody getting 12 and Tramon Mark and Dailyn Swain combining for 17, and Texas still ends up winning the basketball game. Like that's something we don't see that terribly too often with the Texas Longhorns basketball team. So it's really important to have one of those guys out on the floor with Jordan Pope. But Zach, in terms of the game tonight, Purdue is a extremely good team. They played for a national championship not too long ago, if I remember correctly, not last year, but the year before. And it's a tremendous program. I know people are kind of giving me shit for yesterday not calling them a basketball school in comparison to Texas. Like, I just think it's kind of funny that one team is considered a basketball school, yet the other team has more NCAA tournament appearances and Final Four appearances are equal, and like Texas has made the Elite Eight more in the last, this century than Purdue has. Like those kinds of things are always, kind of funny to me. But anyway, Purdue is an extremely talented team, and they present a few different things for Texas that are concerning, most notably their bigs going up, against Texas's lack of defense on the interior, which has been an issue all season long. That's extremely concerning. So how do you see Texas attacking that issue and trying to force Purdue's hand and play their and play the Texas Longhorn style of basketball and keep them out of the paint?
Yeah, I think that Purdue's bigs are really elite. Trey Kaufman-Renn, Oscar Clough, those guys are going to try to get as much as they can in the paint. Purdue is efficient from three, but it's all going to start down low. And so Modest Bogatitis, he's a great offensive player. He's not exactly a rim protector necessarily. He doesn't like blow you away with all these block numbers or anything like that. And he fouls quite a bit too. So he's gonna have a tough time. But I think it starts with the perimeter defense. If Dailyn Swain and Tramon Mark and Kendall Weaver can cause a little bit of havoc for Braden Smith, who's now the NCAA's all-time leader in assists. I think you're going to potentially limit some of those paint touches, and then you'd rather Purdue take a lot of threes and take a lot of shots in the paint and drawing fouls at the same time. So you're going to have to pick something there. Even though they're an efficient three-point shooting team, top 10 in the country, you much rather have that than a bunch of paint touches for easy looks with those two bigs that they have. So, and then on the opposite end for Texas's offense, like I mentioned, I mean, Texas has an elite offense. There's no secret about that. Purdue is number one, but Texas is about a top 15 Ken Pom offense. They were top 10 at one point this season. So, I think hitting their offensive ceiling and being able to – you don't want to go bucket for bucket with Purdue. It's not going to go well for Texas because Purdue probably will outscore them in that case. But I think that if you lean on, like I mentioned before, Tramon Mark and Dailyn Swain's length, I don't know who on Purdue's roster will be able to guard those guys. I really don't. I mean, it's obviously a team thing where it's not all about one guy guarding one guy. It's like some people like to see it as Purdue could utilize a zone to limit three-point shots and limit those guys going one-on-one. But Tramon Mark and Dailyn Swain, I think they could both have big nights. Tramon Mark can hit the mid-range shot over pretty much all the wings on Purdue's roster. I mean, Fletcher Lawyer, he's a great shooter. He's not going to be able to guard Dailyn Swain and Tramon Mark. This is not his strength. Braden Smith's a smaller guy. Not his strength either. So if Texas is going to win this game, I think it's going to come down to those two guys. And, of course, Monis Vukatitis being able to score down low and, potentially get one of those Purdue big men in foul trouble. Those are some of the keys for me. And also, a Jordan Pope update super quick. John Rothstein, who's a great college basketball reporter there for CBS, he reported just a few minutes ago that Jordan Pope is going to be a game time decision for tonight. So interesting there. He was listed as questionable. You don't like for it to get down to game time decisions or anything like that, but kind of expected a little bit just based on the fact that he wasn't super active on the practice floor yesterday. So we'll have to wait and see what happens until then. I know Texas fans will kind of be sweating that one out. Like I said previously, I do lean on the possibility that he'll be active, even though he won't be 100%. I mean, you don't get to the Sweet 16, pretty much ever sometimes if you're some of these college basketball players. And so being able to play in a game like this, one of the biggest games of your career, like it is for Jordan Pope, I don't think he's going to pass it up. I think he's going to try to give it a go. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there.
Yeah. Big update there. Breaking news on the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he's able to get onto the floor. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I feel like he's going to try to give this thing a go because this very well could be his last college basketball game, and I don't think he's going to want to miss it sitting on the bench. And I think he'll probably lobby pretty heavily with Sean Miller, who, by the way, has been very hard on Jordan Pope this year. I think that is kind of finally when we've gotten to quality basketball here in March Madness. I think that's really made a difference, and he's really gotten through to him over the last couple weeks. So, I'd like to see that continue. I really would, because Jordan Pope's a heck of a player when he's on a hot streak, and that's something that Texas is going to desperately need. All right, Zach, let's make our predictions. We're going to do Texas last. We're going to predict all of these games that are being played in the Sweet 16. Should we just do the Friday games since we're going to be back tomorrow talking about recapping? And we can let's do the Thursday night games or the ones we're going to predict. We're going to do Texas last, like I said. Why don't we start with Arizona and Arkansas? I feel like that's kind of a big one. I love Darius Acuff. I think he's arguably the best player in college basketball. The true freshman can really fill it up. Arizona is an absolute unit, though. They're a fantastic basketball team. They won the Big 12. They're my pick to win the national championship now that Florida is out of it. So I guess with that in mind, I can't exactly go back on my pick now, can I, Zach? I guess I'm going to pick Arizona.
Yeah, I'm really high in Arkansas. I think that they're a potential sleeper team to win it all. Not only make the Final Four, but to win it all. So, but I mean, I don't think Arkansas will be able to defend Arizona as much as they would like to. I was watching the Arkansas High Point game in Portland when Texas was there, and High Point looked really, really good. But I think in large part that was due to maybe Arkansas's defense not being what it needed to be. I mean, Arkansas has some crazy good athletes. They can really run the floor. They can dunk it all over you. But I don't know if they'll be able, if they couldn't really defend High Point that well. How are they going to defend a team like Arizona? I would like to see Arkansas win and win one for the SEC if Texas is unable to pull it off against Purdue. But I got to go Arizona. It's just tough. I mean, we are in California. Arizona will have lots of fans here, so I'll go the Wildcats on that one.
Okay. Let's go over to Iowa and Nebraska. I don't know anything about either of these teams, if I'm being completely 100% honest, because I had Florida and Vanderbilt playing in this game in my bracket. So I was looking forward to talking about that matchup. But I mean, I guess I'm going to go with Iowa just because I would like Iowa to win this game. It's, there's going to be a lot of corn in those stands, I'll tell you that. But maybe the most boring matchup in the Sweet 16 tonight. But I guess I'm going to go with Iowa just because I want another upset.
Yeah, I'm going to go Iowa too. Nebraska, this is their first ever Sweet 16 appearance. It'd be a great story if the Cornhuskers could potentially keep advancing past this. I'm a little biased too. I do kind of want the lower seed to win. Iowa is a 9 seed. I think them beating Florida was so big. That shows a lot about what they're capable of. Ben McCollum, first-year head coach there. He was a Division II guy, and he really rose his way up the ranks, and he's been really good at Iowa. And Bennett Sturts is their guard, and he's just so composed, a star-level guy for the Hawkeyes. And I just think them beating Florida, that just says a lot about what they can do. And so I'm going to go Iowa in this one. Nebraska's a really solid team, great on offense. They got some great shooters, but I don't know. I was really impressed by what Iowa was able to do last round, and so I'm gonna go to the Hawkeyes for that one.
I like it. Zach and I are on the same page so far. I guess the other big one tonight, Zach, Houston and Illinois. This is going to be a heck of a matchup. A 2 seed Houston versus a 3 seed in Illinois. I know a lot about Houston basketball because that's one of the teams that we cover on our On SI umbrella. Kingston Flemings, Emmanuel Sharp, JoJo Tugler, Chris Sinak. You could go on down the list. This entire starting five is NBA quality. There's 2 lottery pick talents in the lottery. On the team. I think Kingston Flemings is a surefire lottery pick. I think Chris Sinak has that in him. He's not quite there yet, but they are an absolute unit as well. Like they played Arizona in the Big 12 championship. I think that Houston is a certified national title contender, so I'm going to pick the Cougars.
Yeah, I mean, this game is in the Toyota Center in Houston, only a few miles away from the campus. So there's obviously going to be a large Cougar contingency there. Illinois is a great team. Great offense. I think Keaton Wagler, I should say. I think he is a absolutely elite freshman. He had like 40-something points on the road against Purdue earlier this season. But I just think Houston, after coming up just short last year, this is going to be potentially their year. And they got fortunate that Florida, the number 1 seed in their region, got knocked out. So now they're probably going to be looking to take full advantage of that. And so it's hard to bet against the Cougars. They're just one of the best programs in the country, if not the best, in my opinion. And so Illinois is a great team, but I think Houston's going to be able to get it done. I think this might be their year.
Yeah, I mean, they look like they're primed to make a run, especially with Florida out, like you said. So we're still 100% aligned, Zach. Let's see if that changes for Texas versus Purdue. Texas is the lowest remaining seed in the tournament at an 11 seed. I called them the highest yesterday. It meant the same thing. Don't worry about it. But Texas is currently, up against a team that is also seemingly primed to make a run deep into the tournament, potentially Elite Eight, Final Four material. They're 29-8. They have a 75.6% chance to win the game, according to ESPN's matchup predictor. They're now favored by 8.5, which is up a point from yesterday, likely because of the Jordan Pope news. We're going to pick this one against the spread first, and then we'll go to the final score, I guess. But I'm going to pick Texas to cover. I think that Texas is going to make this thing close. Sean Miller has his team playing really, really well. I think it's a 4 to 5 point game, but I do think that Purdue ends the Longhorns' magical run here.
Well, it looks like we are going to be 100% aligned because I was going to say the same thing. I do think Texas can cover. There is potential for a blowout win for Purdue, in my opinion, if Texas is not able to play the kind of defense that it's been able to, put together the past couple games. But in March, these games are pretty close, and with the way Texas has been able to play, I think it's unlikely they'll get blown out. If just based on the way they've been able to, perform the past couple games. But I'll take Texas to cover the 8.5 point spread because it's a decently large spread. And so even if you lose by a few possessions at 7 points or something like that, you're still covering. And I think that's certainly in the cards, but it's going to be tough for Texas to win this game, in my opinion. You're going to need a bad offensive game from Purdue, which is unlikely. They're the number one offense in the country after all, according to Ken Palm. So you're going to need a bad shooting night from them. You're going to need a great shooting night to potentially keep up with the numbers they're going to be putting up. But I think Texas has the skill for that. But if you don't have Jordan Pope, which is a possibility now, it's going to be really, really hard. So it does kind of depend on Jordan Pope's availability. But either way, I think Texas will lose this game. Unfortunately, the run will come to an end. But despite that, what a season for Sean Miller. Your years based on what you're able to do in March and the fact that you're able to even make the Sweet 16 after barely squeaking into the tournament says a lot about what he was able to do this season and what the team was able to do. And so it's already a success. They've already overachieved. If they come up short tonight, there's nothing to hang your head about if you're Texas. So unfortunately, I do think it'll end tonight. But I said that about the Gonzaga game as well. Texas was able to pull out a win there. So hopefully I'm wrong again.
Yeah, I mean, we're not too far off, Zach. I mean, I didn't think Texas was going to make it past Gonzaga. I didn't think Texas was going to make it past BYU. I had doubts against NC State. By the way, Will Wade goes back to LSU. What a weird hire.
So crazy.
It's like the guy they fired 4 years ago is now back. It's like, what are we doing? They just collect, weird head coaches. Lane Kiffin, Kim Mulkey, Will Wade, I don't know, weird stuff. Anyway, I digress. Texas, they proved the doubters wrong so far. Can they do it again against Purdue? We will find out tonight in just under 2 hours. Tip off at 6:10 p.m. Central Time. This podcast will go up very quickly, so you guys can all listen before the game. Zach is going to be off to go cover that one in person here as soon as I stop talking. So let me wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast today. Make sure to like, rate, and subscribe on our podcast. We're on every major podcast platform. Also, comment down below on YouTube and let us know your thoughts. It really helps us out in the algorithm. But most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you in the next